Welcome to Your Family's Health, the program that focuses on healthcare issues with unique and different modalities for taking charge of your health today. Experts talk weekly with our continuing roster of guests from around the country and right here in Nassau County to keep you up to date on the latest health issues and trends. Take care of your mind, body, and soul. Spend the next half hour with the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and get on the journey to better health.
Hello and welcome to Your Family's Health. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, along with my nursing student co-host, Joseph Torino. And today we're talking about vaping and its impact it has on our health. To help educate all of us, we'd like to welcome our guests from the Rockville Center Coalition for Youth. Let's welcome Ruthanne McCormack, Project Coordinator, and Pam Stark, who is the retired Nassau County Police Department detective who also works with Seafield Center. Welcome, Pam and Ruthanne, to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to speak on the vaping epidemic that our youth are right now experiencing in Long Island and all over the country.
So first, before we even start, tell us a little bit about yourselves as it relates to the vaping. Tell us your role.
My role is the project coordinator for the Rockville Center Coalition for Youth. We are a drug-free community coalition funded under the Office of National Drug Control Policy, directly under the White House. We received a grant to address prevention and education and underage use of drugs and alcohol in our community. We are in our fourth year of funding, and we have made quite an impact, as we are known across the state and across the country, really, for our prevention efforts and our success in running our coalition.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Pam.
I retired from Nassau County Police Department at the end of 2017, and I was working closely with Ruthanne. Ruthanne started the coalition at Rockville Center, but she's kind of bridged herself out way beyond that. I would say the people, the real worker bees in both Nassau and Suffolk on Long Island definitely have merged with Ruthanne in all of the prevention, education, all the awareness efforts. So my position with the Nassau County Police Department for about 9.5 years was to be the spokesperson for narcotics, right? To tell our public exactly what we were seeing in our department. And then I would come back to the department and I would tell them everything that I was hearing from the community. And that's, of course, how I would make my friendship and my close relationships with a person like Ruthanne. And so we did education and prevention. And when I retired, Seafield Center is an inpatient facility, 100-bed inpatient facility in West Hampton Beach. And we also have 6 outpatient facilities throughout Long Island. And then we also have sober living. We have 194-bed sober living. So we kind of have a continuing of care, of help and wellness for all of Long Island. And I'm still working closely with Ruthanne as well.
Maybe not everyone knows exactly what vaping is.
Well, vaping is really, it's just a mechanism, right? Mm-hmm. Vaping is a cartridge. Vaping is something that utilizes a way to have a smokeless, an odorless way of inhaling a substance within your lungs. So vaping was originally falsely, as both Ruthanne and I know, told to the public, it was supposed to be the way of non-smoking, right? So a person was quitting smoking. That is how they kind of launched their product onto our streets. And it was false, right? So I don't think that is really what it's been used, and that's not the billion-dollar business that it has become today. It is now being manipulated and diverting to use it differently than it's supposed to by our communities. And that is really why it's so fastly growing. So anything that you can smoke and inhale is being used in a vape, right? And you also have a battery within it. And because it's not really overseen and there is no components that have really the FDA has controlled, so some of the batteries are actually exploding because the more intensity of the battery, right, the more intense the product is that you're inhaling into your lungs. And so there's been explosions where people have actually lost teeth, have been burnt. And all these things are better for the person who's inhaling it. Of course, not for us, right? The public of health and wellness.
So where do I get a vape?
The kids
Where do I buy it?
The vapes can be bought at any store that sells newspapers, soft drinks. There are vape stores all over Long Island where kids are buying them. And they are actually also buying them online because they are getting around the age use to buy them. And they really have easy access to them. They use a Visa and MasterCard. They don't use debit cards or credit cards. And they are easily buying the vaping products and the pods that go with them.
How much are they?
About $100, $120 to set you up with the full vape and pods.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of money, but our kids have money.
And by the way, they're sharing their vapes. So if, what are we talking about with health and wellness? I'm sure we all have a water bottle right next to us, right? And I'm sure you wouldn't use my water bottle, right? Mm-hmm. But yet we're borrowing each other's vapes.
Wow.
We have no clue what is in that vape, right? And I was just working with a young man just last week. I think I was speaking with you about it, Ruthanne. He was 13 years old and he has had a real problem, right? Even in school, he has been suspended numerous times. And when I got to the house just to speak with him, his mom knows me and asked me, please, Pam, could you come over? He had just told me that he had just came in from vaping THC.
Wow.
So.
What is the percentage? Right, Joe?
Yeah, I was wondering, is vaping more common than cigarette smoking, or do you have a rough estimate about the percentage of youth that is vaping?
Right now, vaping is at epidemic levels with our youth. The Surgeon General actually released a report about it, and they did raise the age to 21, but I think it's a little late. About 80% of all 12th graders have vaped or are vaping. So it's an epidemic rate right now of youth vaping. They start as young as 10, 11 years old.
And when a person becomes addicted to a substance, the age at that point in time, like water seeks its own level, they'll find their resource, right? There's always that person that will divert it to a younger person, right? So the addiction has spread onto our streets. I work closely with a lot of schools, and I call it the revolving door, and Ruthanne and I have spoken about it, where many superintendents and principals are just suspending people constantly.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the nursing department here at Nassau Community College, along with co-host nursing student Joseph Torino. And today we're talking with Ruthanne McCormack, project coordinator at the Rockville Center Coalition for Youth, and retired Nassau County Police Department Detective Pam Stark. So let's just talk a little further about that. Is vaping addictive? And when we're talking about vaping, how does that measure to smoking a cigarette?
Vaping is addictive. Our youth are addicted to nicotine from vaping. Vaping was originally made to help people stop smoking. The average adult who's using vape to quit smoking, a pod will last them 1 to 2 weeks. A youth who's vaping will use 2 to 3 pods a day.
How many cigarettes is that equivalent
One pod
to?
is equivalent to approximately a pack of cigarettes.
So that's 13...
20.
About 20
cigarettes of nicotine.
Is one vape.
So they're using 3 vapes a day. Just do the math and figure out how much nicotine they're getting.
Wow.
They are addicted to nicotine. It changes their brain chemistry. The younger you do it, the faster the change happens. And they need the vape to get through their day. To sleep, they need to vape. I counsel youth that have been caught vaping in school, and they are so happy when they finally break their addiction to nicotine. And they are different. Their personality is different. Their parents are thrilled to have the old personality and the old kid back, is the way they quote. I quote the parents when they speak to me.
Can you vape marijuana?
Yes. Most kids are vaping marijuana. we found that most kids that are vaping are using marijuana to vape. Pam, you want to speak on this?
Yes. Anything that you can divert that can be put into the vape is being used. And when I go out and I speak, and I've been speaking to a lot of people, if I go into a school, you don't want to teach somebody a new and different way to hurt themselves. But when I'm speaking to young kids, young adults, they're telling me what is happening. And guess where they're finding out? Just like what Ruthanne was saying. They're going on the internet. They're friends. So if it's odorless and it's smokeless, why wouldn't they be able to use these substances now in their home where nobody can smell it or see it, right? But the addiction is still there and it's still growing, and it's just like a petri dish. It's like the perfect condition, right, for a new addiction.
Also, I want to add, youth that vape marijuana have told me that they are high 5 to 6 hours. That's how strong the marijuana is that they're vaping.
Now, you were talking about that. Are there signs that parents could look for to notice if their kids are using vaping?
Yes, a total attitude change, their grades falling, just being very belligerent and uncompliant, not wanting to spend time with their family, just wanting to be with their friends, sitting in someone's basement whenever they have free time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk about, I've heard a lot of people say that the gateway drugs, we don't want to use that word, gateway drug. And so I like to say a change of attitude, like Ruthanne was saying, because if I am using certain substances, I'm not going to hang out with friends that don't use, right? When I was a young kid, I was in a marching band, so I kind of hung out with people who were in marching band. You know what, that old saying, like, show me your company and I'll tell you who you are, because you kind of hang out with who you're interested in. So a parent should look for that too. Changes and who their person is hanging out with. And you hear so many parents, and Ruthanne has heard it also. I'm so busy. I don't have the time. Make the time. You don't have a chance to be busy, right? The busy should be with your children. They are only here with us for a certain amount of time. They're the most important things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what exactly is vape juice or e-liquid? What is other forms of vaping? Tell me about that.
Well, the juice is, it comes in vials, and they often make the juice themselves. There are movies on YouTube that they can watch and instructional videos. I know one dad brought me the juice from one of his son's vape bottles, and it contained benzodiazepine, which accelerates the heart rate. Now, these kids that were doing this were athletes. You would think athletes are conscious about their heart and their health and their lung health, but they're not, because it's giving them adrenaline. You know, they're becoming very high and active with doing the benzodiazepine. Pam, what else do you see in the vape juices?
Well, just so that you were just speaking about benzos. All right, so benzos is probably one of the most unspoken about deadly prescription drugs that we all know, right? So yes. Benzos are your Valium and now the new sister of Xanax, right? And a lot of doctors are prescribing that for what we're now speaking about in the last 10, 15 years, anxiety, which we've all had, right? I mean, I was a detective, and trust me, I went through some days of anxiety. But the drugs that, the Xanax, what isn't being told when a person is being prescribed this is exactly how it affects the brain. So if a person, let's say, was using, 10 bags of heroin a day, and they wanted to get into an inpatient, they want to change their life, and they called Seafield, and let's say if there wasn't a bed available, it wouldn't be high alert that person from withdrawals would die from withdrawals, because the medical society says you do not die from heroin withdrawals. How we die is from overdose. But you know, when you're using benzos, you need to be under a doctor's care to withdraw. And do you know that when I was going into schools, and I've gone into schools a lot, I've seen ambulances leaving with young people who are using these drugs that are seizuring, right? So this is a latest thing that we're seeing a lot of. And also, if you look into it, the benzos, they are now linking that to early signs of dementia, right? So these are all things. And how do we find out when a drug has what we were supposed to be prescribing for and what it really does? Is after the fact, right? After human beings start to have different types of problems, right? Or if we have addiction, crime, or death, that's when we start looking at it.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the Nursing Department here at Nassau Community College, along with the nursing student co-host Joseph Torino. And today we're talking with Ruthanne McCormack, project coordinator at the Rockville Center Coalition for Youth, and retired County Police Department detective Pam Stark. And we're talking about vaping.
What kind of strategies do you guys promote and teach in order to reduce this kind of substance abuse that you're seeing in teens nowadays?
Yes, thank you for that question. Well, firstly, the school district has a zero tolerance policy. So anybody caught vaping with vape paraphernalia in school is immediately suspended. Some of them are referred to me, and I do the teen intervene with them, which is a great tool to assess the teen's risk and their risky behavior. Another thing we did a billboard last summer that was up for the whole summer in a high traffic area that actually showed a picture of all the different devices.
Yeah, I see
and
that. That's beautiful.
The conditions that could happen if kids vape. What we also did was recently I've been checking on compliance at our retail establishments. In November of 2018, Juul Labs pulled all flavored pods from all retail sales across the United States. And what I found in the past 3 months was that stores are still selling these flavored Juuls. So I decided that I was going around and giving the stores the legislation that Juul actually gave to the FDA about what they were doing on their end to help stop the addiction that youth have using the Juul. Some of the stores didn't know about it. Actually, one store did, a 7-Eleven on North Village, on Merrick Road in Rockville Center. She knew about it, and she did pull all the Juul flavored pods, but she now sells a generic pod that's compatible with the Juul devices. Wow. And I said to her, you should stop selling those. Also, I'm going to do further research and find out what that company is and where they are also selling them.
So you literally are going from, I guess, 7-Eleven to 7-Eleven to institution to institution to find out who is still selling this. Is this you, or is this a group of people who are going around to make this?
I'm doing this on my own, but I do have the backing of our Rockville Center Police Department. The week before last, they actually did a compliance check on a store in Rockville Center, a stationary soda shop, who had been selling to underage youth. And they did a sting where they had youth acting like they were underage with fake IDs, and they did sell to them. So that owner was fined, quite a hefty fine for that.
Good.
So I'm getting full support from our police department on this.
And I'm hearing, are you the lead of this coalition, or are you a part of the coalition? How many people are a part of this?
Our coalition is comprised of 12 sectors of the community, which include law enforcement, the medical sector, the school sector, and I am the only paid staff of the coalition. The rest of my staff are all volunteers. And recently we were very instrumental in stopping the passing of the legalization of recreational marijuana in New York State. I have to say our voice was strong and was heard throughout the state, and it did not pass in the budget, which we're very proud of.
Jeanine, can I just state one thing? As I said, for 9 years, I was doing outreach for the police department. And the one thing I learned, because, we're sitting around the table, I know law enforcement, the one thing I started to really learn is the power of a community, right? And so the coalitions that are out there, and we happen to now go to the same conference. It's called the National Prescription RX Summit. They added heroin, I think, 3 years ago. So it's now called the National Prescription RX and Heroin Summit. But I went for the first time in 2012 or 2011. And maybe it was less than 400 people in attendance, and it was in Orlando. And do you know that conference today, I think, has over 4,000 or 5,000 people that attend? Huh. The last two presidents attend there. And do you know it was started by a small coalition called Unite. And that coalition back in 2003 called themselves in West Virginia the painkiller capital of the country. Wow. I was on patrol in Farmingdale in 2005, and we weren't really experiencing this at all in 2005. In fact, our police officers didn't even know what Narcan, like we had the ambulances carrying it, but it was not an epidemic on our streets. But yet in 2003, West Virginia called themselves the painkiller capital of the world. So they brought this little coalition, Unite, brought this such an awareness. And I applaud people like Ruthanne. Ruthanne is the worker bees on our streets. She changes so many policies, and what a polite, lovely person, right, to care about our families. I can't say enough about the coalition.
Well, I think that this is a labor of love.
Yes.
And you say that you're the only paid person, but it requires a lot of inertia to really get out there, stay committed to this. That's something that's very, very, I don't know. It's important. It's vital. It is vital.
Word passion, right?
What a passion. And
Thank you.
Do you have children of your own?
I do have children of my own, and fortunately, I can never say that they are not doing anything destructive, but so far so good. But you never know. We have people in their late 20s, 30s that start vaping and then move on to other drugs.
You're listening to Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the Nursing Department here at Nassau Community College, along with nursing student co-host Joseph Torino. And today we're talking with Ruthanne McCormack, project coordinator at the Rockville Center Coalition for Youth, and retired County Police Department detective Pam Stark. And we're talking about vaping. So, this is very intriguing for me. How did this become so attractive to our youth? What do you think made this and continues to make this an epidemic?
It's perfect.
I could say Juul is the reason it became an epidemic. In 2015, they launched a social media campaign which they got people on Snapchat, Instagram, invited them to come to their kickoff parties. They held one in Manhattan in July of 2015 and depicted high school age kids using Juul. And they actually gave out the products. They gave out shirts, bracelets, backpacks. They were the most successful marketing campaign ever. And I heard that Harvard Business School is going to be educating their business students in this marketing campaign.
The marketing campaign is similar. It's a little bit broader, of course, and it's the new whole new thought process. But think about it. Cigarette smoking years ago. Think about the campaign of cigarette smoking years ago. Think about the even the look of the Marlboro Man. I mean, I don't know if anybody, even the younger generation, doesn't know it.
Yeah.
You talk about if we had so much campaign and so much thrust on health and wellness, where would we be today, right?
They also developed it so it looks like a flash drive.
Yes.
Parents had no clue that their kids had a vaping device. They thought it was a flash drive because they were charging them in their computers.
So now, this is a very serious issue, and, I'm sure people who are out there listening, they want to probably get involved, they want to help. Do you guys have a website for more information about the Rockville Center Coalition for Youth and Vaping and a way to get involved?
Yeah, because I would love to get involved in something like this. How can we get more involved?
We do have a website. We're on social media. If you just Google Rockville Center Coalition for Youth, it'll bring you to our website. It will put up our calendar, show our sticker shock campaign that we have actively going on vaping. All stores in Rockville Center put our stickers on there, warning about the dangers of vaping, and there's pictures of what the devices look like.
So, in my position right now, once I retire from the police department, I work for Seafield Center, which is, as I stated, it's an outpatient, 6 outpatient facilities, and we have 1 inpatient facility. And so I also partner with Ruthanne, right? And so we bring awareness and we do education, and she does a lot of night events, and we have Dr. Stephen Dewey, who's he's our research doctor for Seafield Center. So we're always partnering. The community is very broad, and it's bringing as much information as possible to our communities.
I also testified at the FDA at their headquarters in December when they had a hearing on Juul and the vaping epidemic in our youth. So that was quite important. I met a lot of doctors from Manhattan that are strongly advocating against youth vaping.
Very briefly, I know you talked about a store that was non-compliant to taking the Juul off of their shelves. Is there any other legal repercussions for not being compliant? Is there prison time, or anything else that besides fining? What else?
FDA was supposed to come out with a regulation, which they haven't, raising the age to 21, which was just done when our New York State budget passed, I think is a great deterrent. And the stores also told me that they do check for ID. They do get ID that is false, and they will not sell to those individuals. But they also, some of their ID checkers don't work, which I think is a problem for some of these retail establishments. They would get a fine from our law enforcement of up to $500 if they are caught selling to youth under age 21.
And that's not enough.
But it's not enough because, unfortunately, they just care about money.
Yeah.
And some adults do use the flavors. For the most part, no adults use cucumber, mango, creme brulee, and all the other fruit flavors that are out there.
And also there is one other with the flavoring, right? So the flavoring is the same flavoring that butter popcorn used to use, right? So, and they had a factory, and in this factory years ago for the butter popcorn, I think it was over 14% of the laborers in that factory needed lung transplants because of that flavoring. And they use that same flavoring into these vapes. Now, when we're talking about the age, right? So, you know how many adults do not think that vapes are bad? Mm-hmm. So if we raise the age, but then we're not making the education out there for the adults to realize it, they have no problems with buying a vape and then handing it to a young person because they think it's nothing. Yeah. It's not a bad thing, right?
Mm-hmm. If you had any parting words, and give you a couple of seconds to say, what would you leave us with?
I would say that we have to keep fighting against these vaping companies. Get treatment for our youth that are in a nicotine addiction. There's one place in California that youth in high school have gone. There really is not access to treatment for nicotine addiction. It's a 30-day inpatient treatment that these youth have done in California and had success. The big problem is when they return to their communities, their kids are vaping. So switching schools is one of the things people have done. Another school near us will ask the kids if they'd like to try the Nicorette gum to try to get the nicotine when they're getting off vaping. But there's no studies on if this is safe for our youth, and our pediatricians aren't advising it.
I would say that education, like Ruthanne has a wealth of knowledge. I happen to be I've been offered a lot of special trainings and conferences to learn a lot. But I think that parents need to learn so much more. And if they would just come out, when we do awareness presentations, come out. Don't be afraid, right? If we were doing a presentation on the latest illness that was out, we would have no room in our auditoriums. But yet when we're speaking out and trying to teach a parent, hey, listen, we want to give you all the tools for your toolbox so your child doesn't have this kind of issue, or that maybe you don't even have it, because there's so many adults now vaping. And guess what? Most of the time they're afraid to come out because and most of the time the people that are in our audiences already have that problem in their family, right? So I'm just going to ask you to come out and be the superintendent for your family, and don't be afraid. We're here for you. You have a person like Ruthanne, myself. Seafield is awesome. We can connect you to so much health and wellness. Look at you on at this radio station. We have beautiful communities. Long Island, I just love us, and I know that we can help each other, but you just need to listen to us.
Well, thank you for being here, Ruthanne McCormack, the project coordinator at the Rockville Center Coalition for Youth, and retired Nassau County Police Detective Pam Stark. This is Dr. Jeanine Cook-Garard from the Nursing Department here at Nassau Community College, along with nursing student co-host Joseph Torino, and we'd like to thank you for listening to this edition of Your Family's Health.
We'd like to get your feedback on your family's health. Send your comments by emailing them to whpc@ncc.edu. Podcasts of today's show are available on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This program was produced at the studios of Nassau Community College in cooperation with the Nursing Department. Join us next week for another edition of Your Family's Health on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.